Tomato and cheese. Is there anything else we can put on that besides cheese and tomato? It's okay to have cheese and tomato. What kind of I'm a normal guy. How about some bread? Take a look, you'll see. Bread made from whole wheat. Elton John is known as a music star all over the world, but few people know the deeply personal story behind the fame and hit songs. He had feelings for a woman for years but could never tell her. This secret goes against the perfect picture many of his fans have of him. This secret part of his life makes him think about his fame, who he is, and the things he has to give up to keep himself and those around him safe. The things that have been said about this woman will shock you, especially people in the business. Elton John's hard road. Elton John, whose real name is Reginald Kenneth Dwight and was born on March 25, 1947, in Pinner, Middlesex, England, rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most famous and important musicians of his time. He was very good at music from a very young age and got a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Music when he was about 11 years old. This was the start of an amazing career. In his teens, from 1962 to 1968, he played in a blues band called Bluesology. This was his first job playing music professionally. This is the time in 1967 when he met Bernie Taupin. They would go on to form one of the most famous and long-lasting songwriting teams in music history. They made songs together that would be loved by many generations, combining Elton's sense of melody with Taupin's powerful words in a way that not many music groups have ever been able to do. Empty Sky, Elton's first record, came out in 1969 and showed the world his unique voice and piano-driven sound. He became famous all over the world with his self-titled record Elton John the next year. This was the start of his meteoric rise that would define the early 1970s. He became a big pop star during this time, putting out classics like Rocketman, Crocodile Rock, and Your Song, which showed how he could mix catchy melodies with emotional depth. His one-of-a-kind style, flamboyant stage presence, and eye-catching costumes captivated people all over the world, making him not only a singer but also a cultural icon. In 1974, he started the Rocket Record Company to have a bigger impact on music beyond just his own. He signed other acts while still producing his own albums, showing both his business sense and his desire to change the music scene as a whole. But Elton's work wasn't always smooth. He had to deal with problems and controversy. He played at Sun City in South Africa in 1983. Refusing to follow the UN's cultural boycott of South Africa during the apartheid era. Both activists and fans were critical of the choice, which showed the strain that often comes with being famous around the world, where artistic choices meet political and moral concerns. In spite of the attention from the public, his personal life kept changing. He married sound tech Renata Blauel on February 14. Their marriage. A 4-year marriage showed a difficult time in Elton's life, when he had to deal with both public demands and personal problems. Even though he loved her, he later admitted that he was living a lie at the time. This would finally make him more honest about who he was and what he wanted. In 1985, Elton took part in the historic Live Aid show at Wembley Stadium. A show that proved he was still one of the most interesting acts of his time and that he was still dedicated to using his fame for good causes. He went to rehab in 1990, though, because of the stress of fame and his long-term problems with drugs and drinking. This time was a turning point in his life because it gave him the chance to face his addictions and take back control of his work and health. 2 years later, in 1992, he used his newfound kindness and energy to start the Elton John AIDS Foundation. The deaths of close friends like Ryan White and Freddie Mercury may have influenced this decision. This group would grow to become one of the most well-known global advocates for HIV/AIDS research, prevention, and awareness. This solidified Elton's reputation as both a musician and a humanitarian. During the 1990s, Elton John continued to reach amazing accomplishments. He was accepted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994, which shows how important he was to music and how long his contributions will last. Following 4 years, in 1998, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him and gave him the title Sir Elton John in honor of his work in music and charity. Besides these honors, big changes happened in his daily life. In 2005, he started living with David Furnish in a civil partnership, which later became a marriage. In a relationship that brought him love and security, which showed his path to accepting himself and living an honest life. In the years that followed, Elton started to move from traveling all the time to taking time to think and end his life. In 2018, he revealed his farewell Yellow Brick Road tour. This was the end of decades of live shows that had thrilled millions of fans around the world. The COVID-19 outbreak, on the other hand, caused the tour to be late. From 2020 to 2022, then resumed, and finally came to an end with his last show in Stockholm on July 8, 2023. This event marked the end of a very important part of the life of a man who had shaped generations of music while dealing with the challenges of fame, personal growth, and public scrutiny. In his 2019 autobiography, Me, Elton wrote more about his life, problems, and successes. He was honest about his past addictions, relationships, health, and the lessons he learned from being famous for so long. Many friends and readers got a rare look at the man behind the glasses in the book, which showed his flaws and successes along the way. His 2024 documentary, Elton John, Never Too Late, built on this story by following his farewell tour and personal life. It gave a close look at a performer coming to terms with his legacy, at the same time honoring the events and people that made his life so unique. During his work, Elton John achieved many things in the entertainment world. In 2024, he became an EGOT, which means he won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. This is an honor that only a few people in the entertainment industry have. Along with his musical innovations and charitable work, these awards show not only how talented he was, but also how relevant and flexible he was over decades of cultural change. Elton's life is a story of perseverance, reinvention, and never-ending creation, from his early years as a gifted child at the Royal Academy of Music to his last farewell tour. The problems that Elton John had. Elton John's rise to fame around the world was truly amazing. But behind the stunning shows, flashy costumes, and classic hits was a life full of deep personal problems and scandals. In the 1970s and 1980s, Elton had a hard time with addiction. He abused drugs, booze, and other substances, which hurt his health and relationships with other people. The stresses of fame, long touring plans, and the needs of the music business made these problems even worse. He didn't get proper help until 1990. He made the choice to go to rehab and stay sober, which saved his life and helped him get back to work and be healthy again. Since then, Elton has stayed sober and often thought about how hard those years were. He admits that his addiction was one of the hardest times in his life, but he also sees it as a turning point that made him more committed to self-care and support in the future. Along with his problems with drugs, Elton's personal life has long been interesting to the public, especially his relationships and how he is becoming more aware of his sexuality. She was a German sound engineer, and they got married in 1984. But the marriage only lasted a few years. Even though Elton and his wife are deeply in love, some people see their marriage as his last chance to live a straight life before fully accepting who he is. He later told everyone that he was gay. He has talked about being bisexual in the past and is proud of his status as a well-known LGBTQ+ person. People talked more about identity, authenticity, and the pressures people in the public eye feel to fit in with what society expects of them after hearing about his trip. His willingness to be open and speak out has inspired millions, but it wasn't easy for him to become accepted. Elton has talked about the inner struggle, the scrutiny from society, and the personal reflection. Those that went along with his early efforts at straight relationships show how fame can make private problems more public. Elton also got into trouble in the politics world. In 1983, he played at Sun City in South Africa, even though the UN had banned art from countries that were still under apartheid. A lot of people were upset about this choice, which led to a debate about what artists should do in politically charged situations. Critics said Elton's performance hurt international efforts to fight apartheid, even though Elton said he was just trying to make people happy with his music. This shows how complicated the relationships are between fame, power, and moral duty. These kinds of scandals show that even well-known people can be closely watched when their actions affect global politics. They have to deal with the harsh opinions of the public while juggling their personal and professional goals. In addition to drug problems and politics problems, Elton has had a lot of health problems throughout his life. He has had hip replacements, stays in intensive care units, and other major medical procedures over the years. This shows how decades of performance, travel, and personal hardship can wear down your body. In more recent years, he said that an eye infection was making it very hard for him to see. That had a huge effect on his vision and showed again how vulnerable even the most successful people are. These health problems, along with his past struggles with addiction, paint a picture of Elton's strength by showing how he has handled a demanding job while also facing major personal problems. He has had to change, keep going, and keep up a level of discipline and self-awareness that many people may not realize he has. Showing how fragile people are behind their superstar image. People have both admired and questioned Elton's charitable work, especially the work he does through the Elton John AIDS Foundation. The foundation was started in 1992 after the deaths of friends like Ryan White and Freddie Mercury. It has had a huge impact on raising awareness, preventing HIV, AIDS, and funding studies around the world. Many people have praised Elton's work, but he has also had to deal with the usual challenges that famous philanthropists face, such as keeping things open, meeting donor expectations, and dealing with public scrutiny of how funds are spent. These problems are made worse by the demands that come with his fame, which means that everyone can see every choice he makes. Even though it's hard, Elton's dedication to his charity shows that he cares about things bigger than himself. Showing how his personal problems and experiences have shaped a larger goal to make things better. His work and personal life have been tangled with scandal many times, showing how complicated being famous can be. Being famous isn't always easy or straightforward. Addiction, sexuality, controversial acts, health problems, and charitable duties are just a few examples. Elton has a lot of problems with drugs. Describe how the music business in the 1970s and 1980s could help and hurt artists. His choice to go to rehab in 1990 not only changed the course of his own life, but it also set a public example of recovery and responsibility, showing that even the most famous people can suffer from the effects of drug abuse. His time in rehab was the start of a new phase in his life. It gave him the chance to rebuild his career, fight for health and wellness, and take on leadership and charitable roles in LGBTQ+ visibility. The way people think about and talk about him is still affected by how his relationships and identity work. Even though his marriage to Renata Blauel was short, it is still used as a major example in stories about being real and social pressures. By finally coming out as gay and accepting his sexuality in public, Elton not only took back his own truth, but he also gave LGBTQ+ people around the world a voice. Pushing people to accept and understand each other better. At the same time, people are looking closely at his past choices, especially his decision to get married while he was still trying to figure out who he was. This shows the conflict between private wish and public expectation, and how fame can make even normal human struggles into global issues. Elton's political decisions, like the performance at Sun City, also show the complicated responsibilities that come with being famous. He was at the heart of ethical debates when he performed in spite of the UN's cultural boycott. This shows that artists' actions often have meanings beyond what they mean at the time. Fans may only care about his music and stage presence, but reviewers and activists think about what those choices mean for society as a whole. This reminds us that public figures have to find a delicate balance between artistic freedom, personal values, and social responsibility. These examples show that actions that aren't meant to cause trouble can still cause them, showing how delicate the balance is between freedom of speech and duty to the public. Physical health problems have also been a recurring theme in Elton's life. This shows how the demands of a famous job can push the human body to its limits. The fact that hip replacements, stays in urgent care units, and serious eye infections are common shows that there are real problems and weaknesses behind the shows, tours, and studio work. Having to deal with these problems while keeping up a busy personal and work life shows how strong, disciplined, and able to adapt he is. These events add to his legacy and serve as a reminder to fans and observers that great ability often comes with big personal sacrifices. Even when he was giving money to good causes, Elton had to deal with the stresses that come with being a famous person. There is more to running the Elton John AIDS Foundation than just collecting money. It needs strategic control, openness, and knowing how to meet the needs of donors and the public. Managing these duties along with personal obligations and a tight performance schedule is an example of the many difficulties that come with doing public charity work. Even with these problems, Elton's dedication to the foundation and other social issues shows that he wants to make a difference that lasts. showing that having influence over the people comes with both chance and duty. Renate Blauel's life was full of problems. Renate Blauel was born on March 1, 1953, in Berlin, Germany, a city that was still getting back on its feet after the war. She would later meet one of the most famous musicians in the world, Elton John, and leave a small but important mark on his life. Blauel was interested in and good at both music and technology from a very young age. These were the qualities that led her to work as a sound engineer and recording studio worker in the late 1970s. She became a recognized figure behind the scenes thanks to her technical skills, professionalism, and hard work at a time when men mostly worked in the music business. She worked on albums by well-known acts like Mike Oldfield. She worked with Paul McCartney and Marvin Gaye, which made sure that her skills were recognized in the business world, even if most people didn't know her name. Many artists of her time wanted to be famous, but Blauel focused on her work. This let her work speak for itself, and earned her a reputation as a careful, highly skilled professional who could handle the stress of high-stakes recording environments with ease. She would have a huge change in her life when she met Elton John in 1983 while working on his record Too Low for Zero. These two people quickly became romantically involved after working together for a while. They got married in Australia on February 14, 1984, in a very romantic wedding that got a lot of attention. When they got married, Elton's life was very difficult and closely watched. There was a lot of talk about his sexuality, and the pressures of fame were getting worse. Blauel's marriage was a step from her job as a studio technician, where she worked behind the scenes, to the very public and exclusive world of star life. Even though they were very private, the media was interested in their marriage because of the contrast between Blauel's desire for privacy and Elton's flashy public persona, which included expensive costumes, high-profile performances, and personal decisions that made headlines. At the time, their relationship wasn't talked about much in public, but it showed both the difficulties and the appeal of marrying someone famous, showing how difficult it can be to balance privacy and public attention. From 1984 to 1988, when they were married, Blauel's life was mostly out of the public eye. She stayed out of the way and calmly supported Elton while being very aware of her own limits. Blauel showed a lot of strength and discretion in a marriage that was at the intersection of global fame and private life. She made sure that media speculation didn't affect her life or choices too much. She is very strong and calm because she was able to handle these stresses without becoming a public scandal. Even though marrying one of the most famous artists in the world came with problems, she kept her independence, which had a quiet effect on Elton's stability, while keeping her own secrets safe. Their marriage finally ended in divorce in 1988. The breakup showed how their personal and work lives were changing. For Elton, it was a step toward openly accepting his sexuality. For Blauel, it was a choice to stay out of the spotlight and protect her private life. This shows that they were both on a similar, if different, path to authenticity and self-determination. After the split, Blauel chose to stay out of public life on purpose, putting privacy and reinventing herself ahead of fame or attention from the public. She chose to live a quiet life away from the public eye instead of staying in the spotlight like many others who were linked to a global superstar. This vacation wasn't just something I wanted to do. She made this choice on purpose to stay in charge of her own story, to make her own decisions instead of letting the media shape her life. By choosing discretion, Blauel will stress how important autonomy is and show how a person can set personal limits even after being a part of one of the most watched music groups in the 1980s. Her decision to withdraw shows a strong commitment to privacy. It also shows the difficulties people who are close to celebrities face and the steps that need to be taken to protect personal identity in a setting that often tries to eat it. Blauel took more steps to get away from her past in 2001 when she officially changed her name through a deed poll. This move was a big step in reinventing herself, and it helped her build a private identity separate from her relationship with Elton John. By setting up this legal and symbolic distance, she reaffirmed her long-held desire for privacy and independence. This choice shows that she not only wanted to keep her private, but also wanted to be in charge of her own life story. She wanted to make sure that her identity was defined by her own terms, not by what other people thought or how the media framed it. Blauel's name change was a deliberate reassertion of her autonomy and showed how strong she was by showing that she could handle the complexities of relationships with famous people while still maintaining her privacy, sense of self, and respect. After being divorced for decades, court issues from their marriage came up again for a short time, and in October 2020, they reached a settlement. Blowell and Elton John both agreed not to say anything else in public about each other or their marriage. This showed that they both wanted peace and closure. It's clear from the settlement that limits are still important for people who have spent part of their lives in the public eye, even after the relationship is over. It shows that both people understand the need for privacy and shows that personal respect and honesty can exist with a history of being public. Blowell and Elton both chose to keep their past private and limit commentary. By doing this, they showed that they wanted to be in charge of how it is talked about and remembered, putting respect over sensationalism. Renata Blowell's legal fights and mental health problems got a lot of attention again decades after her short marriage to Elton John. They show the difficult situations people face who are famous and want to be independent. One of the most important topics was her privacy and legal problems that came up because of her marriage. Blowell said that Elton John regularly broke the terms of their divorce agreement from 1988. The agreement was carefully made to protect both parties from public scrutiny and had a clause that said neither of them could talk about their marriage in public. Blowell did not think this violation was a small issue. People didn't believe it, and it was an invasion of their privacy. She had worked very hard to grow it over the years. She went to court and asked for an injunction to stop any future ads to or changes to Elton John's book and the movie Rocketman. She did this to regain control over her own story. In addition to trying to protect her privacy, she also asked for about £3 million in damages for the mental suffering that came from being seen in public again. This shows how much attention can affect a person's mental and emotional health. Blowell made it clear that she has always cared about her privacy and safety by taking these formal steps. After the split, she changed her name and became less public to hide the fact that she used to be married to Elton John. This showed that she was determined to live her life without the fame that she used to have. This act of reinventing oneself wasn't just a metaphor. It was a real step toward reclaiming freedom and making a life based on personal choice instead of media interference. As part of the settlement, Blowell and Elton John both agreed not to say anything else about each other in public. This was done to reinforce the principles of privacy and mutual respect that were originally outlined in their divorce agreement. This court decision put an end to the case and recognized the long-term effects that relationships with famous people can have on people who want to keep their private lives private. It showed how delicate the balance is between public interest and personal limits. Blowell's experiences also show how serious mental health problems can be in high-profile relationships, especially when privacy is threatened over and over again. She allegedly tried to kill herself 3 days into her vacation after Elton allegedly told her that the marriage was not working. A moment that shows how much mental stress she was under even in the early stages of their relationship. In addition, she had anxiety and panic attacks all the time while they were married, which were made worse by the stress of being married to a famous singer. Even though the marriage was formally short, Blowell was going through a lot of personal stress at the same time. She had to deal with both her own emotional health and the expectations of people around the world. Eager to look into the private lives of its famous people. These events show the human effects of fame that are often ignored. They show how public interest and personal vulnerability can come together in terrible ways. Blowell apparently had a mental health relapse that included nightmares, agoraphobia, anxiety, and depression after decades of public attention had died down. This happened especially after Elton John's memoir and the release of Rocketman. This return shows how past events can have long-lasting effects when they are talked about again and again in public. It also shows that people who try to avoid media attention can still be affected by it. Blowell's story shows how hard it can be on a person's mental health when they are in a relationship with someone who is famous, especially if one person wants to remain anonymous. Her troubles show that mental health problems can last a long time and are often made worse by outside factors, such as increased public scrutiny and media portrayals that revisit private life without permission. Blowell also found that how she was portrayed in the media was a major source of stress. The actress said that the movie Rocketman lied about her marriage by making it seem cold or detached, which she said was not true. She didn't just care about how other people saw her, she also cared about staying true to the truth of her own experience. She said she wasn't informed before the movie was made or their marriage was shown in it, which she said was against the terms of their divorce confidentiality agreement. Blauel was very upset about these images because they went back into her private life without her permission and violated the privacy and independence she had carefully protected since the 1980s. This argument shows how difficult it can be when creative license is used in real life, especially when those real-life events involve people who have chosen to stay out of the public eye. It shows the conflict between telling a creative story and being morally responsible, especially when the person being told the story has privacy rights that are guaranteed by the law. He loved Renata Blauel, but he couldn't keep her. Renata Blauel is a very important person in Elton John's life, representing a love he had but could never fully experience because he was gay. They got married in Sydney in 1984, and their relationship is often known not only for its romantic start but also for the deep personal and emotional problems that came after. Elton wasn't ready to accept that he was gay at the time, which had a big impact on their relationship and the years that followed. Even though Elton loved and admired Blauel, he later said that marrying her while not fully understanding who he was caused pain and sadness for both of them. Blauel has been honest in his thoughts about how hurtful he was in his first marriage. He said that he wanted to be a good husband but couldn't be true to himself, which made Blauel sad and gave him a strong sense of guilt. This recognition gives a rare look into the inner challenges people face when trying to figure out who they are in the intense spotlight of public life. It shows how personal authenticity and societal expectations can clash in deep ways. Both love and stress existed in Elton John and Renata Blauel's marriage, mostly because of the sexual pressures people felt in their own lives and in society as a whole. The couple's wedding in Sydney on Valentine's Day was a beautiful event that got a lot of attention, and made Elton's personal problems seem less important for a while. From the outside, the event may have looked like a party, but behind the scenes, it was a reflection of the stress of a relationship in which one partner wasn't yet ready to live freely in line with their true self. For Blauel, getting married was a sudden change from having a private work life as a sound engineer to being married to a famous musician. This meant dealing with both public interest and the problems that come with having an emotionally unstable partner. For Elton, it was a time when he tried to figure out how to love Blauel while also being true to his sexuality. This process would lead to both personal growth and a sad but necessary end to their relationship. After 4 years of marriage, Elton John and Renata Blauel got a divorce in 1988. It was painful, but it gave each person the chance to live a life that was more true to who they were. Elton came out as gay, which made him think about how important it is to be honest and brave in relationships. His words were that if you want someone to love you, you have to be brave and honest with yourself and your mate. When Elton John talks about his past, he always talks about how much he admires and loves Blauel, stressing that the marriage had a lot of emotional weight to it. He said, "She is a beautiful woman, and I love and admire her so much," bringing out the real love that existed between them. In addition to talking about his own life, Elton John has used his fame to fight for bigger social problems, like marriage equality, and to stress how important love and acceptance are for everyone, no matter their sexual orientation. Before his tour in Australia, he spoke out in favor of marriage equality and was proud of his long-term relationship with David Furnish, saying that their marriage has been accepted all over the world. In his speech, he praised the freedom to be completely honest with a partner. He said, "I met Furnish almost 24 years ago, the person with whom I could be fully myself.